Hello class and welcome to a new analysis of Skin by Philip Larkin. Skin is a poem about the inevitable deterioration of the body, addressed directly to the speaker's own skin as though it were a person. Its central themes are aging and mortality, the body as a surface that records and displays a life, and the quiet regret of having failed to celebrate youth while it lasted. Philip Larkin was one of Britain's most celebrated post-war poets, known for his dark wit and rejection of sentiment. Skin was published in 1955 in the collection The Less Deceived. Before we look at the stanzas, let's consider the title, Skin. The title, Skin, is a single, blunt monosyllable. There is no softening adjective, no poetic gesture, no literary device. Just the biological fact of the body's outer surface. From this title, we instantly expect this poem to be a blunt, lucid, and unromanticized portrayal of the human body by Larkin. Now, let's move on to the first stanza. I'll leave you a moment to read this stanza and form your own opinion before I begin the analysis. As you have read, stanza 1 opens by addressing skin directly, warning it that the fresh, authentic surface of youth cannot last. And the poem instantly kicks off with a metaphor. The skin of the human body is immediately equated with clothing, specifically a daily dress, something worn routinely without ceremony. The extended metaphor that will structure the whole poem is established in these three words. The skin is not something one has or owns, it is something that one wears. The diction obedient, meanwhile, is a precise and quietly alarming choice in terms of diction. It suggests the skin has no choice but to submit to the laws of time and aging. It is obedient. It is entirely at the behest of forces beyond its control. Next, the poem speaks directly to the skin as you, a device sustained across all three stanzas. This apostrophe creates an intimate and confrontational tone. Then, the dental alliteration, through the repetition of harsh dental sounds in daily dress, signal the speaker's resentment and bitterness at the realization of his own aging self. The sound is clipped and hard, which carries an undercurrent of frustration. Then modal verbs permeate this first stanza and permeate the rest of the poem. These modals of impossibility and obligation frame aging as non-negotiable, inevitable. Larkin allows no loophole and no consolation. We then have an interesting piece of diction in unfakeable. Through this diction, Larkin describes youth's skin as something authentic, something that cannot be replicated, counterfeited, or performed. One cannot conceal their own aging, as youth has a sort of authentic and spontaneous quality which cannot be imitated. Larkin then writes, "Learn your lines," which is a sentence, a phrase often used or employed in performance arts or in theater. We therefore here have a theatrical metaphor. Here the wrinkles are the script that time writes on the face. The face becomes a stage on which the body's history is displayed for others to read. Then the triplet in anger, amusement, and sleep, which are 3 emotional and physical states, are listed here without conjunctions, suggesting that every single human state, however ordinary it might be, leaves its permanent mark on the body's surface or skin. The diction forbidding gives the wrinkles a warning label quality. They act as a sign, an indication of the individual's age. According to Larkin, the face cannot keep secrets. It displays its history, whether the speaker consents or not. Let's now move on to stanza 2. I'll once again leave you a moment to read the stanza. Press pause and form your own opinion before I begin the analysis. As you have read in this stanza, time is depicted as a coarse and grinding wind that scours and damages the body's surface continuously. As mentioned earlier, the stanza starts off with an extended metaphor. Time is compared to a sand-laden wind, a gritty, abrasive force that grinds the surface of the skin away slowly and slowly without mercy. This really reminds me of the scientific phenomenon of erosion, how wind erodes terrains. Time, therefore, erodes the skin and the face. Time is therefore not this sudden storm, but a continuous and structural wearing down of the body. And the alliteration here in continuous course here really reinforces the idea of a grinding and rasping texture. But after this extended wind metaphor, an old bag arrives as a blunt and ugly surprise. It is really an instance of bathos. The poem drops sharply in a register, refusing any dignified or glorifying language for the body's decline. The body becomes a simple, degraded container, worn out, shapeless, and without beauty. We then have another metaphor right after that one in carrying a soiled name. Here, Larkin is saying that the body carries an identity, carries a name. The body therefore becomes a vessel for everything the person has been and done. And within this metaphor, we have also a semantic field in the word soiled. The word soiled, alongside coarse and roughened and old, clustered together across the stanza to build a sustained atmosphere of wear, contamination, and irreversible decline. And just like before we had some modal verbs, here we have imperatives. Parch then, be roughened, sag. These 3 commands issued to the skin show the sheer inevitability of aging. Let's now move on to the final stanza, stanza number 3. I'll leave you a moment to read the stanza and to form your own opinion. Stanza 3 is really the poem's emotional turn. Everything before was quite impersonal. The speaker seemed to be exterior. Now the speaker stops issuing commands and offers an apology. And so the poem's decisive shift arrives at, and pardon me, the volta here. Everything before this point was an impersonal instruction. The tone changes from the speaker issuing commands to offering a confession. And this volta is subsequently followed by an enjambment. Here, the sentence spilling over the line creates a tentative and a searching movement. The speaker feels this way towards the confession. Rather than stating it directly and boldly, he seems quite reserved and tentative. The enjambment enacts the hesitancy of the apology itself. This is not a confident speaker. but someone arriving at an uncomfortable truth. And really, this word, this phrase, pardon me, is very formal and almost courtly, and it is therefore simultaneously absurd and really reinforces Larkin's regret. It sounds at the same time quite ridiculous, but also deeply sincere. And Larkin's main regret is that he didn't enjoy brash festivity whilst his body was still youthful. Here, the diction brash suggests the loud and unself-conscious confidence of the youth that the speaker lacked. And we then once more have the main extended metaphor of this poem, which is the comparison of the skin and clothing. Larkin regrets not having worn his youthful skin, just like he would have worn clothes to parties and to festivities. Youth is sort of a garment that deserves an occasion. Youth is something that asks to be worn proudly at a celebration, and the speaker failed to provide this. When Larkin writes, clothes are entitled to festivity, this is really a personification, as the skin, an inanimate object, is compared to a teenager, a person who is entitled to have fun. And this is really to reinforce the idea that the skin deserved the celebration, but it never really received it. And the final line here acts as a powerful symbolism. Just how clothes go out of fashion, skin goes out of condition, it deteriorates. We saw before that when Larkin refers to clothes, he really means the skin, because this is the main extended metaphor of the poem. And just like fashion and clothes change, so does the skin, which becomes out of fashion. Let's now move on to a final reflection on form and structure. In terms of form, the poem comprises of 3 uniform stanzas of 6 lines each, so 18 lines in total. And so this regularity is really deliberate. Larkin imposes formal order onto a poem and a subject defined by disorder and collapse. And he really creates this interesting tension between controlled structure and chaotic content. Another main feature of form is the sustained apostrophe. The poem really addresses the skin as you all throughout it. And it gives this poem the quality of a formal monologue or an address, an official address, rather than a lyric meditation. In terms of structure, the defining feature is the volta at stanza 3, where the poem shifts with this volta and pardon me. To conclude, Skin is a poem about 3 interlocking themes: aging, regret, and identity. Larkin presents the deterioration of the body not really as a tragedy, but as an inevitable step in one's life. Time is not described as being gentle in this poem. It's a sand-laden wind that grinds the surface away continuously and without sentiment. After time successfully wore the body down, it becomes an old bag carrying a soiled name. There's also this theme of body serving as a mirror of one's identity. Every single past experience of any human being is ingrained in his body through scars, through wrinkles, and so on. As Larkin says, the body carries a soiled name. But the poem's most painful moment comes in the final stanza, when Larkin shifts from general decree to intimate apology. He realizes he failed to celebrate youth, not because it was taken from him, but because he lacked the temperament for festivity. Thank you for having listened to my analysis of Skin by Philip Larkin. Please like the video, comment, and I'll see you in the next one.